Hey, welcome back to Oddie's Angling TV. It's the 2nd of November. It's a bit nippy now. We've had an unbelievably mild autumn so far and a very dry one. Lake I'm fishing is down about 5 feet in its levels. It's just really bizarre. Normally we'd have quite a wet summer and then an even wetter autumn, and it's been dry all year long. If you're a regular peruser of this channel, you'll have noticed that we've been a bit shy this year of video blogs. There's one reason for that. Back end of last year, 2013, at Christmas, my dad was diagnosed with terminal cancer, and unfortunately after a protracted battle he lost his fight in August. So that meant for me fishing time was very limited. Life happens, we all have to do these things, and I did manage to get out a couple of times. Now, this particular water is my club water. It's a private club water, and there's some nice fish in here. We fished here starting around the first week in April, and I managed to blag out my lake PB of 19 pound 12. It was a common, an old decoy fish, and in fairness, that was the lake record then. Up until then, it was only 16 pound. Now, this lake received a number of fish in the about 3 or 4 years ago from England, from a legal import. They were brought in. They are, you know, fast-growing fish. There's about 60 of them that were put in here, and they were all put in around the 3 to 5 pound range. There were 2 fish, I believe, 8 and 12 pound. They were the biggest out of the batch, but there's only 2 of the 60 of that size. One of those fish has come out around 17 or 18 pound, but to be honest with you, you know, we're all struggling to get through to the fish. They are in here, we've seen them, they cruise around, but this is an exceptionally weedy lake, and that has caused a whole heap of problems and headaches. But let's just run through the year. As I said, I managed to blag out a 1912 common from this particular lake, which was, you know, a nice first fish, new lake record. Unfortunately, it wasn't to stay too long. Somebody else managed to catch one slightly bigger, 20 pound, and then Derek, my fishing buddy, he managed to blag one out at 22.5 pound, and that was just a stonking big fish, really cracking, and his first Irish 20 pounder.
Look at this junk. Oh my God, look at you. Oh man, look at that. 22.5 pounds of pure muscle. What a beauty. Oh yes. Who's a happy camper? Oh.
The reason why I say Irish in inverted commas are that we have a number of different imports. There's the original Irish fish, we have English fish in the country now, and we also have French fish. So everyone has their own set of values of what everything's worth. So as I said, I've fished here on and off then a few times, and I've blanked ever since. And it's just, I don't fish very long sessions, and I really need to spend a bit of time on this water to get the grips with it. But I came down here with a game plan. I've fished effectively, considering that yesterday I was bivvy bound. It lashed, and I mean lashed, all day long. Derek managed to get a couple of bites last night. He arrived about half 7 in the evening. By 11 o'clock he'd managed a couple of bites, but they were hybrids. Biggest one was, I think, about 7, which is a stonkingly big rudd bream hybrid. So this lake, as I say, has been a bit of a challenge. Now, we managed to slip down to Cork. It was kind of a bit of a get together with a number of lads, because Derek was celebrating his 50th birthday, so we went down to Cork and we fished the Lough. And the Lough is always a generous lake to us. It's an easy water, it's prolific, carp up to about 20 pound. And you know, it's a runs water, but I managed to blag out 13 fish, 2 18 pounders, a couple of 17s, and a mixture of nice fish, a couple of real scaly nice ones, you know, the old decoy scaly ones, really pretty fish. On the Lough, we're down for Derek in Main Irish Angling's 50th bash. It's his birthday, so we decided we'd all have a bit of a fishing, and we've got a couple of reprobates with us. We've got Martin Heaney and Dan are down. We have Les from the shop. We have Mark Kelly. We have Almon. We have Joey and Eric. Keith. There's a few more down today, and at the moment the whole bank is stitched up. It looks like Margate Pier, but I managed to blag this out. I'm gonna, oh, don't mind me. Let's see if she'll behave. I'll get it a bit closer so you can see her, but absolutely, nope, come on. But gorgeous apple slice. Scales on it. A bit feisty. This one weighed 16 £4. Managed to get myself a couple of other fish during the night. I had a 17-4, 17, both commons, a 9-5 common this morning, and then I had a £5 common and this one. So it's fishing's not exactly running away with itself. There's a big algae bloom on in the lake at the moment. It's pea green soup, and we're trying to fish with as smelly a bait as we can find so that the fish can find it. Now I came down here and did my usual. What I did was I put the chesties on, went out and heavily baited up. I've done 2 baiting so far, one yesterday around midday and the other one around midday again today, and it seems to switch them on. But anyway, I'm going to get this one back, but absolutely peachy. Yeah, why not? That's the other side of her. Came to a white sticky krill pop-up with one of the new Medusa style maggots chopped on the very top of it. Fished on a new rig I've been playing around with. When we went down that particular weekend, I don't like to fish on busy weekends where there's lots of anglers. I find more lines in the water, the less fish you're going to catch for yourself. But we went down anyway, and it was Derek's 50th birthday bash. There was about 10 of us all along the bank with 3 rods each. Therefore, you know, there were a lot of lines in the water. But that said, I still managed a respectable 13 fish. No hook pulls, no dropped fish. Guys were using the chod rigs and they were pretty much losing on a ratio of 2 to 1, which is not great. I had more runs than anybody else, bar one, but my baiting strategy worked very, very well. One thing I did do, and you know, accuracy is everything. I'm not the most accurate of casters, but I do try. Rob Coleman, a buddy of mine, always said to me, he said, "Jer, it's better to recast something 30 times and be happy with it than to cast it once and not be happy with it." Because all it takes is that 5 minutes for that fish to move in on the right spot where the bait is presented just perfectly, and you'll get your fish, you'll nail it. When I got to the lock, I got there the day before anybody else was arriving, and I knew I was going to get hemmed in and boxed in by lines, and everyone will tend to go longer range. My plan was only to fish about 25 to 30 yards out. I ended up, I was fishing about 40 odd yards out. But what I did is I set up my Taska range sticks and I marked myself out to a spot where it was about 11 wraps. So I then I went out on my chesties and I baited up heavily with about 3, maybe 4 kilos of boilies. I put out about 10 kilos of flake maize, 1 kilo of pellets, 1 kilo of actual maize from the dynamite range. And it's a lot of bait, but I spread it over my sort of 3 rod area, and I spread it a good bit back away from me, so I really scattered it right out onto the lake. And the plan was to start fishing at the 11 wrap range, and then as the fish came in, they'd have no lines on their baited patch. They'd gain confidence and I'd be able to pick them off one by one. Now that actually worked out really, really well for me, so that's exactly what I did. On the Friday I was down, I fished at 11 wraps. Friday night I was at 11.5 wraps. By Saturday morning I was at 12. And I went out to 14 wraps between Friday and Sunday. So I started at 11 wraps out to 14. And what I was doing was I was following the fish back. As they started to pull back off me, because they were getting hooked and fish were getting caught, they started to shy away from me. So I followed them. And the only way I could do that was accurately was using the Taska range sticks. Now some people think, look at them and think, what a load of palaver. It's so much effort. It's not really. It improves your fishing no end, and I can recommend them thoroughly. Now I've used a number of different range sticks. I've used the Avid ones, I've used the Signet ones. I own a pair of Signet ones, and I also own the Taska ones, and I prefer the Taska ones for two reasons. Well, actually three. The firstly is they've got yellow sights on either the poles, and that really does make a big difference, especially at night when you're trying to wrap your lines around. That's what I love about Taska. They take known ideas and they redefine them, hence the logo. And they are able to sort of tweak and design a better implementation of systems. The range sticks, as I say, have the day glow yellow tops. Makes it very, very easy visually to wrap around at dusk and at night. Also then they have the yellow cord. The yellow cord is a 13-foot cord. It also has a big knot at the 12-foot, so you can then run the clip back so you make a little loop and drop it over at 12-foot. Now I prefer the 12-foot mark, and the reason why I prefer that, even though I'm using 13-foot rods, is that there's 4 yards in one wrap. So for what, you know, if I count up 10 wraps, that's 40 yards. It's an easier way of working it out for myself, so I know where I'm at. Then I moved on to October the 1st. As I say, I have not had a huge amount of bank time this year due to everything going on. Managed to book off a couple of days in October. Managed to get on to Lyreen. October the 1st, I had something very, very special. Managed to winkle out what is the most sought after carp in the country, which is a fish called the udder mirror. In Lyreen, they've got about 5 fish over the 30-pound mark. Most of them are very low 30s and can drift actually into the high 20s as well. But the upper echelon, the 18, are big hole, which roughly comes out anywhere between 38 and 40. But her peak real weight is around 39. And the udder mirror has been hovering around a 35 to 36 pound mark for a number of years. And this year has seen her really explode. And she's now knocking on the door of the top one, which is big hole. The udder mirror earlier this year was out in April or May. It was out at 39 pound. I managed to get her out, as I say, the 1st of October at 37 pound. She doesn't really, I mean, 2 or 3 visits a year to the bank, you'd be lucky. Sometimes she's only once a year and sometimes she's not at all. Whereas big hole is the mugfish, and don't get me wrong, a fish that everybody wants to catch, but she does tend to hit the bank on a more regular basis. She could be anywhere up to 5 or 6 times out in a year. but she's not graced my nets, but give it time. Get in. I'm bloody knackered, I am. I'm wet, I'm cold. First frost of tonight, last night we had the first frost. We had a dense, foggy mist that came down, and in the middle of it, I had a couple of beeps, and then they started to go on me. It's funny, my other rod beeped first, which was away from the area I was fishing. And I got out the sack and I went to check that one out first, and while I was up the other one went off, so thankfully I was on the rod very, very quickly. Came straight in, good account of itself, wiped out my other rod that was fishing close to it, which is this one here, and yeah, 37 pound Irish PB, get in. So as I said, one of the things that I've been working on this year, whilst I haven't been fishing, I've been thinking about my fishing. And the one thing that I wanted to do was to kind of devise a rig that I could pretty much take anywhere. I'm fishing very weedy venues, but I wanted a rig that I could pretty much take anywhere and cast out and have a chance of presenting a bait, whether it be on silkweed, Canadian, stonewort chara that we have in this lake. The stonewort chara here is like a big mat across the bottom. And you know, if you fish normal rigs in it, they do sink into it. So I needed a rig that would be kind of like a chod-like rig, but I'm not a big fan of chods. Chods are great for presenting baits, but the problem with them is that they have a great hooking ratio, but they also have a great loss ratio as well. So for every 10 hookups on a chod, you're going to lose 3 or 4, maybe even 5 of them. It's because the lead, it comes right down very close to where the actual hook length is. The hook length's only usually about 1 inch to 1.5 inches, and it bangs it around a lot as the fish shakes its head and it can unloosen the hook hold. So I wanted to find a rig that basically would suit my fishing and suit the water zone fishing, whether it be very silty or whether it be very choddy or whether it be very weedy. Basically, I kind of, and I'm not laying any claims to this, but basically I worked on this particular rig for a while, and what it is, it's like a chod helicopter rig setup, but it also has a multi-rig rather than a short hook length. Now the idea being is, at the very, very bottom, I have as light a lead as I can get away with. And then what I do is I've employed about, well, that's about 5 foot, 5.5 foot of one of the lead-free leader materials. This happens to be Core Zero by Taska. It's in 45-pound breaking strain, and it's a nice mottled brown and greeny kind of mottle on it. So it's very unobtrusive in the water and sinks like a brick. Now, basically what I do is I splice the leader at both ends, and I just then put on a quick link clip here so I can clip on and off my lead. Now, as I said, I try and use as small as a lead as I can get away with. If that's an ounce, then I'll use an ounce, but I don't want it burying too heavily into the weed. The reason why I use such a long length of leader material is I can sometimes, depending on the lake I'm fishing, have the top bead set right up to the very top here, so that you know, pretty much I've got nearly 4 foot of leader material buried in the choddy silt or whatever, or weed. The great thing about having a long length like this, it means I can set the rig to what I'm fishing in. So say if I'm fishing on hard gravel or a fairly stony bottom, what I do is I'd fish the top bead here, so that, because that's moving up and down like a helicopter, like a chod, I'd fish this top bead here, pretty much where it is there, about 1 inch or half, 2 inches of movement. So it really will kind of act as a bolt rig. If I was fishing in, say, 3 or 4 inches of silkweed, I would set that then maybe at 5 or 6 inches, so that it would actually sit on top of it. Now what I do is, whenever I cast this out, and this, as I said, is a multi-rig, I use a bit of PVA foam, a nugget, clipped onto the hook, so that when it hits the water, it hits onto the bottom and will sit up in the water like so, and then as the PVA dissolves off, it'll actually drop off and come down and sit down very, very neatly on top of whatever debris is there, whether it be silkweed, whether it be chod, whatever it is. Now, say if I've got a situation where I have the stonewort chara like I have out here. The stonewort, as I said, is a bed, a very matted bed of weed, and it comes about 3 feet off the bottom. So then I would set this then at maybe 4 foot. So it gives me that little extra. And again, as that hits into the water, the lead will go in, and then this will sit down on top of whatever debris or weed is out there. And because I fish semi-slack lines, not fully slack, but semi-slack lines, the last couple of inches of the leader material actually sits down very nicely on top of any of the debris or weed. Now, my top bead is made by Taska again. Now, what I've done is, up until now, I'm quite anal about having everything pinned down in the vicinity of the hook. So rather than using one of the beads, like the chod beads from Corda, that has the little split in the bead and it pops off, I wanted to have something that actually had weight in it. So I'm using some of the Taska tungsten baseline products here. This is basically what I have here. Is I have a tungsten sinker in medium size, and then I also have a baseline tungsten bead that's designed to clip onto tubing. It's kind of like a tulip style bead, and it will actually just sit very neatly on top of that actual sinker, and it will lock in. Now the bead itself is designed to fit over you know, tubing, so it's a very wide bore. That means if I do get a crack off or a break off or anything for any reason, this will actually pull the bead straight off, and the bead will go over any knot material or any sort of fixture that you have in place. It'll actually just fly straight over any of the knots that you've used to attach it to the actual splice. So it's a very safe system, and because it's baseline tungsten, it means that it's going to sink again like a brick and keep everything pinned down where I need it to be. So getting onto the multi-rig section, basically I'm using about 8 to 10 inches depending on the swim I'm fishing. I might go a little bit longer if it's really weedy, but it's 8 to 10 inches of a material called camo by Corda. Now it's one of these braids that has been coated. The thing I like about it, it's stiff enough that it will reset every single time if I get an ejection from a fish, but it's soft enough that it will actually sit down very nicely on top of any of the weed that's out there. And I think that's really, really important. The actual pop-up is very, very critically balanced. I don't want this coming down heavy. I want this to drop down very, very slowly so it will sit on top of whatever debris or weed is out there. But little features like this is a tungsten baseline tail rubber by Taska, and I have this covering one of the Taska heli swivels that has the little clip on it. And why I'm using the actual baseline rubber here is I'm using that to cover the clip so that it can't come off the actual clip itself, the hook link can't come off. But I wanted to use the Taska tungsten impregnated baseline product because I want that to sit down very, very neatly on top of the silt or the weed. I have used other ones from other companies, and the great thing about a venue like this is I have access to a boat, so I can get out and I can have a look where I've cast a rig. I can actually go out and see it, and I found that some of them seem to catch a bit of air in it and would sit up a little bit, and then your hook length was sitting up above the water line, or sitting above the actual hook length there, so you had a bit of a loop before it flattened out, and I didn't really like that. Whereas with this particular tungsten one, it'll actually sit down flat, and that's why I'm using it. I want that all to be sitting there flat. So as I said, that's the rig itself. It's a very basic rig. I'm not laying claim to any of part of it. It's just a mishmash of a number of rigs, but I've put it together so I can fish it in a very specific manner.